All right, so just to give you an example, I remember a few years ago, many years ago actually, they had launched this space telescope called the Hubble. And it has a huge mirror inside of it. I think it was 1.8 meters or something in diameter, like a huge mirror. It was an optical type of telescope, and it had this curved mirror, this concave mirror to reflect starlight, right? And the way they grounded this mirror, imagine this is an extremely delicate piece of equipment, was a little bit off specs. It wasn't quite grounded with the right dimensions. And as a consequence of that, they couldn't quite focus the light that came in from the stars, and they were not getting good images. So what they did is they, understanding how this mirror had been ground, they were able to apply some correction to the image, and they were able to get good images, focused images. And the scientist who explained this to the public many, many years ago, it was one of the first missions to the space telescope, they said, well, it's like giving the telescope eyeglasses. Well, that's exactly what happens with eyeglasses. If the shape of your eyeball is such that light is not focusing on the retina, then you apply correction to the eyeglasses through contact lenses or regular eyeglasses, and you kind of bend light a little bit in such a way that light can focus now on your retina. We apply correction. Now check this out. I'm making an analogy here. Since we don't really see reality, when things become unpleasant, we don't really see reality, right? What we really see is a reflection from the past. And we react to the past. We don't see the present. So then we have to apply a correction to what we perceive. In other words, I'm experiencing this, you're telling me this, you're doing this to me, and I'm perceiving what you're doing to me, but I need to know how to subtract from what I'm experiencing the distortion. Because what I'm experiencing right now is a product of reality, what's happening, plus the distortion created by my mind that has to do with my own past. If I can subtract the distortion, I can experience reality as it is. The mind adds the distortion, and therefore the net perception that we have of the situations in our lives is distorted. But if we could remove the distortion, then what remains is reality as it is, net reality. Okay, where does the distortion come from? This is where therapy becomes really interesting, because we all have what we call in therapy a mythology, personal mythology, myths. Now myths, sometimes a person says, oh, a myth is like a lie. A myth is not a lie necessarily. A myth is a story that conveys some sort of useful information. So for instance, if you read in high school some Greek novels or something, you may be familiar with the concept of Greek mythology. And what were those myths about? Well, the myths were stories designed to transmit culture and values. So by reading these myths, I can understand what my culture values. This is what's important for a man. This is what's important for a woman. This is what's honorable. This is what's valuable. See? Because I listen to these myths and I understand now what culture values. So if I can behave in a way that emulates what those mythological heroes are able to do, then I become a hero in my own culture. And that's the value of mythology. Except that myths apply in a positive sense, such as in the case of Greek mythology, but also in a negative sense, because we all have a personal mythology that can be denigrating to ourselves. And this personal mythology, these ideas that we have stored in our minds, have to do with negative experiences from the past. So the first thing that we do is this profound retrospective analysis of our own past experiences. What really happened there? It's like watching a movie of our own lives. It's like we're no longer around and somebody made a movie of our own biographies, our own lives, and we're going to watch this movie. But the key to it is this. When we begin to go over the parts of our lives that we don't like, the difficult parts of our lives, the difficult pieces of our own past, we add another emotion to the analysis, and therefore we cannot see what really happened. In other words, the process is the same as what's happening in the present. I'm attempting to, in other words, inside of the mind, when I'm observing my own past, it amounts to the same thing as observing the present, tainted with another set of emotions there. So we have to learn to remove emotions from this observation so that I can extract what is my personal mythology. Because it is that mythology, it is that set of prejudices, it is that set of conclusions that I arrived at early on in my life that will now taint, contaminate, distort my perception of current, present reality.